Have you ever wondered why flowers bloom in spring only to wither in winter? Why does the earth cycle between abundance and barrenness, life and death? The ancient Greeks believed they knew the answer, and it's a story that will break your heart. In the golden age of ancient Greece, around the 8th century BCE, storytellers wove tales that explained the mysteries of the natural world. These weren't just stories. They were sacred truths that shaped how an entire civilization understood life, death, and the changing seasons. The Greeks saw their gods as powerful yet flawed beings whose emotions could reshape the world itself. Our story begins with Persephone, the radiant daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Picture her as the embodiment of spring itself, young, beautiful, with flowers blooming wherever she walked. Her laughter could make barren fields burst into life. Her mother Demeter controlled all growing things on earth, ensuring that crops flourished and humanity survived. Persephone spent her days dancing through meadows with ocean nymphs, gathering flowers and bringing joy to the world. She was innocence personified, untouched by the darkness that lurked beneath the earth. But in the shadowy realm of the underworld, someone was watching. Hades, lord of the dead and ruler of the underworld, had fallen desperately in love with the spring goddess. From his throne of bones and shadows, he observed her dancing in the sunlight above. His realm was filled with the souls of the departed, but it lacked life, laughter, and love. Persephone represented everything his kingdom didn't have. But Hades knew that neither Persephone nor her protective mother would ever consent to her living in the land of the dead. So he devised a plan that would change the world forever. One fateful day, as Persephone wandered through a meadow in Sicily, she spotted the most beautiful flower she'd ever seen, a narcissus with 100 blooms. The flower was Hades' trap, planted there by Gaia, the earth goddess, who pitied the lonely god of the underworld. As Persephone reached for the enchanting blossom, the earth beneath her feet began to crack and rumble. The ground split open with a thunderous roar, and from the chasm emerged Hades himself, driving a chariot pulled by 4 black horses. Before Persephone could even scream, the god of the dead seized her and plunged back into the earth. The crack sealed shut, leaving only the trampled narcissus as evidence of what had occurred. Demeter's world shattered the moment her daughter vanished. She searched everywhere, through forests, across mountains, over seas. She questioned every god, every nymph, every mortal she encountered. But no one would tell her the truth about what had happened to Persephone. As days turned to weeks, Demeter's grief transformed into devastating rage. She abandoned her duties as goddess of the harvest. Crops withered and died. Trees shed their leaves. The earth became cold and barren. Humanity faced starvation as the goddess of agriculture turned her back on the world. Meanwhile, in the underworld, Persephone sat in despair on a throne beside Hades. The Lord of the Dead showered her with gifts, precious gems, golden crowns, and promises of power over his dark realm. But Persephone refused to eat, refused to smile, refused to accept her fate. She knew that eating anything in the underworld would bind her to that realm forever. Hades tried everything to win her affection. He showed her the fields of Asphodel where ordinary souls wandered peacefully. He revealed the paradise of Elysium where heroes spent eternity in bliss. He even let her judge the souls of the dead, sharing his divine authority. But nothing could lift the spring goddess's sorrow. Above ground, the situation grew desperate. Zeus, king of the gods, watched as humanity suffered through an endless winter. Mortals were dying, and without their prayers and sacrifices, the gods themselves would weaken. Something had to be done. Zeus sent Hermes, the messenger god, to negotiate Persephone's release. The god with winged sandals descended to the underworld, and found Hades' palace draped in shadows. There sat Persephone, pale as a ghost, having eaten nothing for months. Hermes delivered Zeus's command. Persephone must be returned to her mother. Hades knew he couldn't defy the king of the gods directly, but he wasn't ready to give up. In a moment of cunning desperation, he offered Persephone a handful of pomegranate seeds, ruby red, like drops of blood. Persephone, weakened by months of fasting and overcome by hunger, accepted the seeds. Some versions say she ate 4 seeds, others claim 7, but the number mattered less than the act itself. By consuming food from the underworld, she had sealed her fate. When Demeter learned what had happened, her rage shook Olympus itself. But the ancient laws were clear. Anyone who ate in the underworld belonged there. However, Zeus proposed a compromise that would satisfy both the grieving mother and the lovesick god of the dead. For the number of seeds Persephone had eaten, she would spend months each year in the underworld as Hades' queen. The remaining months, she would return to the surface and rejoin her mother. This arrangement would continue for all eternity, and so the seasons were born from divine heartbreak. When Persephone descends to the underworld, Demeter grieves, and autumn arrives. The goddess of harvest withdraws her gifts, leaves fall, and winter blankets the earth. But when Persephone returns each spring, Demeter's joy transforms the world. Flowers bloom, trees bud, and life returns to the earth. This myth reveals profound truths about the human experience. It speaks to every parent's fear of losing a child, every child's journey from innocence to experience. Persephone's story is one of transformation. She enters the underworld as a naive girl, but emerges as a powerful queen who rules over both life and death. The ancient Greeks saw this tale as an explanation for the Eleusinian mysteries, sacred rituals that promised initiates a blessed afterlife. Persephone became a symbol of hope, proof that death wasn't the end, but a transformation. Her annual return promised that life would always triumph over death, that spring would always follow winter. The story also explores themes of power, consent, and agency that resonate today. Persephone's abduction reflects ancient concerns about arranged marriages and women's limited choices, yet her eventual role as queen of the underworld shows her claiming power and authority in her new realm. Modern interpretations often focus on Persephone's growth and empowerment. Some versions suggest she chose to eat the pomegranate seeds, accepting her dual nature as both spring goddess and queen of the dead. This reading transforms her from victim to a complex figure who bridges two worlds. The myth has inspired countless works of art, literature, and music throughout history. Renaissance painters depicted the abduction in dramatic canvases. Romantic poets found inspiration in Demeter's grief. Modern writers reimagine the story through contemporary lenses, exploring themes of trauma, healing, and female empowerment. Today, we still see Persephone's influence everywhere. Her story lives on in our language. We speak of someone having a Persephone complex when they're drawn to darkness. Her myth appears in popular culture, from Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series to Broadway musicals. The changing seasons continue to remind us of this ancient tale. Every autumn leaf that falls echoes Demeter's sorrow. Every spring flower that blooms celebrates Persephone's return. In a world where we understand the scientific reasons for seasonal change, the emotional truth of this myth remains powerful. Persephone's story teaches us that transformation often comes through suffering, that growth requires leaving familiar places behind, and that even the darkest experiences can lead to wisdom and power. Most importantly, it reminds us that love, whether between mother and daughter or husband and wife, has the power to reshape the world itself. So the next time you watch winter give way to spring, remember Persephone's journey from the sunlit meadows to the shadowy underworld and back again. Her story lives on in every season, eternal proof that life, love, and hope will always find a way to return.